Hi guys, this is Lerilyn with House of Akoti Design. Today I will be reviewing a new pattern that I've been working on the last couple of days. It's the Butterick 6106 and I actually sewed view A. Okay, so here's my take on this pattern before we start going over the pieces that you'll need. There are some tricky spots to the pattern. It's pretty detailed. There are about 31 plus steps. A lot of pictures are laid out to tell you, what piece you're sewing, which piece attaches to which piece, like most commercial patterns. So that was all a plus. I would probably rate this pattern an intermediate for an intermediate sewer. There are some tricks that you'll probably, have to use to get certain areas to look right. One thing I noticed, which I second guessed myself, was the facing piece. One of the facing pieces, it's actually too short on this pattern. And I did look at some other sites and reviews on this pattern, and it's actually true. Other people are saying the same thing. So be mindful that one of those facing pieces is actually a little shorter, probably a good 3 to 4 inches shorter. So what I did, because this is a jacket for myself, instead of recutting that entire facing piece, which of course if I was sewing it for someone else, a client or a family member, I would have recut that particular piece, but it was already attached to the jacket. So I just made the additional 4-inch piece to it to attach to the bottom, and I'll show you that piece once I'm done. Okay, another thing, there are princess seams in this jacket. So again, with beginner sewers, sewing those, reverse curves can be kind of tricky. Again, that's why I rated intermediate. Does the pattern look like my finished product, like the picture? Well, I'll let you be the judge. So this is the view that I sewed, view A here. And this is the jacket. It's not hemmed yet. I'm still working on the hems. I'm still working on the sleeves, but it is a boxy, type of fit, very loose fitting. I love the neckline here. It's got the wider, collar. I did not ease the shoulders in for the most part. They're kind of set in like a raglan kimono type sleeve with this pattern. I love the asymmetrical detail on each side. And again, the one change that I did make, I'll show you inside of that facing. I chose the contrasted view, A and B. I just love the way this jacket came out. Not really sure what I'm gonna pair it with, but I did choose a wool flannel. Sorry, with the camera. I chose a wool flannel along with an upholstery fabric for this. All right, so what pieces will you need to tackle this particular project? Well, what I did was laid out all of my tissue pieces first on the cutting table, and I just used regular see-through paper here, like a transparent tissue. And I traced out all of the individual pieces in my size. And again, I like my jackets a little bit larger. I probably could have fit a size medium, but I chose to make this in a large. And it does fit just a little bit bigger. I did go in and take the seams in on the side seams, probably about another 1/2 inch after sewing it and putting it together in a large. And I also took in an additional 1/2 inch in the back seam, because even with the large, it just seemed a little bit too bulky, even over, existing clothing. This is an unlined jacket. So, again, if it's for yourself, you may just want to serge the inside of your seams, or you may choose to use bias binding. I chose to do bias binding. I did not do the Hong Kong finish on this one, but I will let you see on the inside here how I finished the inside detail. I can get all of these buttons open here. All right, so on the inside, you can see I'm still working on my hemming here. There we go. But I just did some bias binding here and did some bias binding in there just to kind of finish off, you know, my edges again so that it's nice and professional looking on the inside as well as the outside. Okay? All right, so notions, you're going to need 5 buttons, you're going to need interfacing, and of course, whichever thread. I use an all-purpose thread for this particular one. So let's look at the pieces for this Butterick 6106. You're going to need the right front, and this is my right front here. All of my pieces are laid out. For you to see here, you're going to need piece 2, and these are pretty self-explanatory, so I guess there's no need to show you all of these pieces, but yes, you're going to need the right side front, which is sewn to the right front. You're going to need the middle right front, and when I say right front, you actually are looking at this piece here. You have a middle right front, and then you also have a side front over here. You can see that seam on the side there, okay? So there are just a lot of pieces to this pattern. It's gonna really be important that you keep up with these pieces because a lot of them also look quite a bit alike as well. All right, so then you've got the lower right front, piece 4, okay? Piece 5 that I've cut out. So now we're moving on to the left. You have the left front. And what's great about these patterns too, of course, you have your lengthen and shorten lines. So make sure when you take your length from the neck to the waist and the back waist length, you can make those adjustments, you know, accordingly. Piece 6, you're going to need the left side front. 7 is, again, the middle front. And depending on the view, again, you'll be choosing whether you're using all of the same fabric or main fabric with contrasting fabric. Okay? So that was piece 2 that I forgot here. That was your right side front. Okay, so piece 8, we talked about those princess seams. So this is, again, that princess seam that you'll be easing in here, this lower left front. Okay? And that's going to give you this curvature that you see here once you ease that particular number 8 in, that princess seam. Okay? All right, number 9, of course, then it's your back piece. Number 10 is your side back. Then you have your sleeve. Sleeves take up so much fabric. All right, as your sleeve, and make sure when you are setting in your sleeve there or easing in that sleeve if you choose to, make sure you follow those notches, the 1 notch for the front, the double notch for the back, and of course your circle here to match up to your center shoulder seam. Okay, number 12, you have your pocket, and you have the option to do the top stitching on the pocket. On my particular jacket, I can show you from the side here, my pocket. I actually sewed my pocket a little bit smaller from my big old hands here, but anyway, it goes in. That's my pocket on the side. I guess it's big enough to get my cell phone in there probably, and maybe my car keys. So keep in mind you follow those circles to let you know where to start and stop with your pocket. Okay, so then a few more pieces. 13, you have your right front facing, this piece. Okay, you have your left front facing, number 14, for the opposite side. 15, your back facing that attaches to the right and the left facing. You have the hem facing, number 16. I will talk about this piece and this step on the pattern. This hem facing, because again, the facing itself is short, you're going to have to add material to that particular portion of the pattern. to make sure it fits, or if it's already sewn together, if you did the way that I did, I just had to cut an additional piece of material for that to make it fit. And looking at the pattern here, it's actually step 30 and step 31 on your instruction sheet, where it's actually explaining to you how to attach those pieces. And then you'll quickly figure out, once you get to the finishing steps, now for finishing him facing in him, it's actually too short. So what I did on my particular jacket, I'll show you here. My particular jacket, this was on the left side. You can actually see on the inside here what I did. Again, I cut an additional piece here at the bottom to just kind of add to it. So from the outside, you know, it's okay. You can't really tell. But on the inside, you do have that overlap here because it was just too short. But again, it's just for me. So, you know, I'm going to be okay with it because I really did not want to disassemble that entire facing, you know, to redo all of that. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And then lastly, when it's time to do those buttonholes, you're going to need 17, and there are 3 of these, 17, 18, and 19. Again, because I did view A, you want to either cut out or use your tissue to create a pattern for this. And on this particular buttonhole guide, it tells you where your upper edge is going to be, of where you're going to place this here, lined up with your center front. Lined up with your center front here, sorry. This piece will line up here, okay? And basically, this is your guide for your buttonhole placement marks. So there's 5 1-inch buttons, and basically, you know, whether you do your buttonholes by hand or your machine does it for you, I actually use my Juki machine over there in the corner. It's set up to do the buttonholes. Basically, I just slide the size of the button I've chosen into the actual buttonhole unit, and it actually will create, you know, that particular size of buttonhole, you know, for me. Okay, you can probably see my little buttonhole underneath there. But anyway, going back to some of the tricky parts of this pattern, again, reverse curves, those princess seams. Part 1 is just pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna stay stitch the side of part 1, and that stay stitching is just to, you know, make sure that seam doesn't stretch out pretty much. Same thing for your side front. You're gonna stitch parts 1 to parts 2. Keep in mind when you see narrow hem, of course, you know, you want to fold down from the raw edge, usually like a 1/4 of an inch, and then fold in again, and then usually you stitch along that top line of the fold to give you that nice clean finish. Going forward, everything else is pretty self-explanatory with this pattern. What could be a little tricky next is when you get to step 15, where it's telling you to pin the lower left front, number 8, the one that had the princess seam, right sides together, matching your notches and centers. You're going to be pinning that lower left front, number 8, to the middle front. So that's a middle front piece over here. So you have your left front piece here, your left front piece. You have a middle piece. You have that lower left bottom piece here, but you also have that left side front. So there are just a lot of pieces for you to keep up with, you know, for this particular pattern, which is fine as long as you're organized and have everything out, you know, where you need it. So moving on from 15, you're moving on to the back. So basically you're going to take the back piece and the side back piece and stitch 9 and 10 together. Then you're going to stitch the back together, you know, let's see here, pin the back sections together. You're going to sew those together, and then you'll be going on to sewing the back shoulder edges. That's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure when you're doing these shoulder seams as well, you want to use some type of stay tape to be able to hold those shoulders together to keep them from stretching out. Again, this is not a fully structured, tailored look, even though I did construct mine with some of those details. The pattern really doesn't call for shoulder pads. Again, they're not really set in sleeves. It's more of an, you open out the front and the back. Everything's laid out like in that half circle, and then you're kind of setting it in like a raglan sleeve. So it's more of that looser, boxier fit as opposed to your traditional tailored set-in sleeve look. Number 22, I did take some notes here. Again, I did cut my pocket just a little bit smaller, or stitched it a little bit smaller, because those circles will tell you exactly where to start, exactly where to stop. Sometimes I'll actually insert my hand in the area to make sure, you know, there's enough room and comfortable for what, you know, I want it to fit like on me personally. So basically with the pockets, they're two pieces. You have one of the contrast and one of the regular fabric, at least that's what I chose. And you're going to place one on the front, one on the back. And then of course those are right sides together. And then you're going to follow where the circles are to stitch. Another thing with this pattern is you want to make sure all those seams are lined up. If you're looking at number 23, because you're starting at the very edge of the sleeve and you're sewing all the way down to the very end of the side, you want to make sure all of those seams are lined up, because from the inside, you want it to look as pleasing as the outside, especially if it's for a client or someone. So make sure you either use your pins or just holding with placement with your fingers, those seams are lined up well before you stitch. Okay. Another thing that's recommended is that you clip around the pocket edges to help stretch that area open so nothing's too tight. I typically also clip a little bit underneath the underarm area where the sleeve goes in, you know, especially on a tailored type jacket, just to have movement and comfort there, okay, and lifting of your arms. Again, optional top stitch. Again, 26, I have not hemmed my sleeves yet. I wasn't sure if I was going to create a lining for this jacket, but once I started looking at all those pieces, I was like, probably not. I will go ahead and just do the bias binding, which does take a little time, but it does have a nice finish on the inside when it's done. It's nice and clean. So then you go ahead and you insert the left sleeve, do that underarm, finish off your hem, and basically time to do the facing. So again, when you get to the step 30s with facings, you do take 13 and 14 with 15. You're going to sew that back facing to each side of 13 and 14, which is your right and left facing. Okay, and again, keep in mind, one of those are short, so you'll have to make that adjustment before you stitch, or you'll be doing that addition like I did. So basically, everything else is pretty straightforward, again, until you get to the finishing part with that shorter portion there. And then it's time to do your hemming. And that's pretty much where I am with my hemming on the jacket. I use some of that's your hem facing, basically. That's what that's going to look like here. And I could have used the same material basically all the way around, but for the details of the rest of the hem, you know, I just chose to finish the inside with the same bias tape that I did for the bias binding all around. Okay, so this is my version of Butterick 6106, still in the process. I will probably do a pair of custom jeans with it, and I will be back to show you those finished details. So again, this is Lerland with House of Akoti Design, going over Butterick 6106 and my progress thus far. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, hopefully this was helpful for you. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at House of Akoti, TikTok, House of Akoti Design, Facebook, House of Akoti Design and Gifts. I love what I do and just trying to grow this retirement business as I sew one stitch at a time. Have a great day. Bye.